Hello and welcome to the Optimise for Success Roundtable series from Foodservice Consultant Society International, FCSI. This video series addresses how consultants, operators and manufacturers alike are adapting to the new normal of food service amid a rapidly changing landscape. My name is Michael Jones from Progressive Content in London, Editorial Director of FCSI's Foodservice Consultant magazine. This episode, hosted here today at the fabulous FHA HoReCa show at Singapore, is kindly supported by MKN. Massive thanks to them. And will focus on the topic of working successfully across borders, regions and sectors. I'm delighted to be joined by two leading FCSI professional member consultants from the FCSI Asia Pacific division and the Regional Vice President of Asia Pacific, South Asia and Australasia at MKN. So firstly, let me ask each participant to introduce themselves and tell us about their organisation and their area of expertise. Alburn, let's start with you first, please.
Right. My name is Alburn Williams, and I head up a company called CKP Hospitality Consultants. I'm currently based in Perth, Australia, and we have offices in Kuala Lumpur, Dubai, Shanghai, and Bangalore.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alburn. Welcome. Mario?
Thanks, Mike. So my name is Mario Sequeira. My business is based also in Perth, Western Australia, and we do design and management consulting. I also wear a hat in my global role with FCSI, and so quite a bit of my time is also spent towards making and developing industry to make it stronger and better for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mario. Daniel?
Yeah, my name is Daniel Metz. I'm the Regional Vice President for MKN in Asia Pacific, South Asia and Australasia. I'm heading the regional office in Kuala Lumpur, and together with my team we are giving utmost support to the region by having different culinary innovation centers, such as in KL, in Singapore, in Bangkok, in Ho Chi Minh City, another one to come up in Jakarta, and obviously India as well.
Excellent, thank you, Daniel. So my first question then would be let's talk about how much of a split there is in terms of your client project work across different sectors, different regions. Let's talk about domestic projects and international projects that you work on. Alburn, what's the sort of rough split that you have between work that you do where you're based and overseas?
Well, we started off as a domestic-based company, but it was after the 97 crisis when work dried up that we were forced to get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right now, the split of work we have now typically is 20-80, so 20% is domestic, 80% is international. And I think we've made that our formula pretty much the last 25 years, so to speak.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Mario, same question to you.
Yeah, sure. So my thing is that I've been in the industry for 39 years, and actually 2/3 of that time is actually working in the industry. So I started a career as a chef and then did my management studies and then was in managerial roles. And it's only been the last 1/3 of my career that I've been in consultancy. Being in the operational side of it has helped me to be a better consultant.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was very fortunate to work in India and travel through to Singapore, Europe, America, and look at different projects and different things around the world and get a different perspective of how hospitality projects are addressed. And then, of course, now my majority of my work is in Australia.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mario. Daniel, what's the sort of territory split that you have on the across your region?
Yeah, sure. So actually being an international company, so we do focus on several segments, several markets, of course, and putting a strong focus on Asia Pacific. But in general, talking about MKN, we do have a share of about 40% domestic in Germany and about 60% globally.
Fantastic. Thank you. So let's talk about how you guys as consultants, also as a manufacturer, approach projects differently in different territories. In fact, do you at all? Are there typical working practices that you may adopt in different countries? How does it work, Alburn?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because there are two aspects to this. First of all, it's cross boundaries. When we talk about cross boundaries, we have to look into the culture of the local market or the culture of the international market that we want to engage in. We typically start off a project by going into the local market, talking to contractors, manufacturers, operators, and understanding what kind of equipment is supported locally, what is the codes in force.
Yeah.
And by understanding that, we then use that information to direct or inform our projects. That's for the cross boundary, but when it comes to cross segments, we have two poles here. On the one end, it is artistic culinary, which is the kind of chefs you find, the Alan Ducasses and the Franzens, and on the other end you have the streamlined process production efficiency approach. So between these two poles lies a myriad of permutations and combinations, and so that sets its own parameters on the way we engage as consultants.
But clearly communication is key, I would think, here in terms of how you interpret
it's like somebody just said to me 2 days ago, and he underlined it very specifically, that concept design is actually 70% of all the costs, because it involves a principal getting into the rhythm of Q&A with the client so that the client is informed and taken through a journey of what they're going to get at the end of the day.
Brilliant.
So that's really what it is.
Thank you, Alburn. Mario, what's your company's approach?
So the thing is that when we look at it, the principles of food service and food service design don't change. They are the same whichever country you're working in. So you have to look at the food safety aspect and the operator safety aspect. Those are the underlying things that we look at, and those are the basic things. All that happens differently in different countries is the challenges are different and the requirements are different. The underlying thing remains the same. And so, for example, if you look at something, just based on my experience having, over the years, is like if you look at it, it'll be so different. So in a place like India, the approach will be that, it's got to be the aesthetics, that, when I finish it, it's a name, it's a pride that the project's finished and it's a really cool project and people will talk about it. If you come to Singapore and you do something in Singapore, where I collaborated with an American company and we did a big healthcare project here, the focus is on technology and for the next 15 years. How are we positioning ourselves for the next 15 years? So whether it's the latest in technology, robotics, whatever you can incorporate, that's their focus. And then if we've worked in other places like, through my firm, it's say New Zealand or Fiji, Australia, it's about the customer experience. So the underlying principles are the same, but the focus is on the customer experience. So it's just different ways of how you approach things.
Great answer, thank you, Mario. Daniel, what's your company's approach?
Yeah, I think the key is to understand the local market. Yes. What is the approach? What are the habits? I mean, apart from the equipment itself, you also have differences in the different ages. Yeah, so we do have a generation aspect. So if you're talking to experienced old chefs, they rather go for traditional ways of cooking, whereas the main challenges in the kitchens are always alike. I mean, you hardly have space available. Actually, you have to put multifunctional appliances, but then you come into a conflict of traditions, where a wok might be preferred from operator's point of view, but you know that the demand for the kitchen and the output that is required can't be coped with the wok unless you increase the size of the kitchen. So that's where the challenge is. So I think understanding the market and having a strong sales force to understand the market, to be in the market, that's a key.
Yeah. Daniel, let me stay with you and ask you a question about some of the key business lessons that you have learnt working in different territories. How have you, I don't know, the subject here is, the theme is optimizing for success. How have you adapted and learnt kind of as you go about how you approach different projects?
Yeah. Is it related to the COVID now? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously now I think the efficiency has been increased. Mm-hmm. So obviously in the past we used to travel quite a lot, where now a significant part of our work scope is having Zoom meetings or some other platforms. I think this boosts efficiency, that's for sure, but it doesn't balance with a face-to-face meeting, so these are essential as well. So I mean, we are all in a people's business and we have together from time to time.
Thanks, Daniel. Mario, what's some of the key business lessons you guys have learned along the way?
I think, taking on from what Auburn said, what is important to have the Q&A and to understand what they want. Our thing is very important after you've done all of that is to set a reverse brief and get everybody on the same page. So everybody, all the stakeholders give all their feedback, but we put down a written reverse brief that includes what would be what is going to be delivered, what the proposed budget is, and what is the final outcome that you want to achieve. So we get sign off on all of that, and then once you get sign off on that, we find that is gives you the best chance of success, because then there's no gray area, there's nothing. Things will change along the way, and you have to be open to that. But if you set that reverse brief and all the expectations up front and the deliverables, then that gives you the best chance of success.
And an extension of that point, Mario, thank you very much. Alburn, in terms of adapting and giving your clients and the project the best chance of success, how do you adapt along the way? What kind of lessons have you learned?
Well, one of the biggest challenges coming out of the pandemic is the client's wallet has been worn thin.
Yes.
So as a result of that, they have a certain benchmark that they always want to achieve, and it's always driven by the quantity surveyor. It's 1.5% of the construction budget or 2% of the construction budget. Once that's set in place, it kind of limits the food service consultant's creativity, because you now have to work with a budget. It's no more how high you can fly, but how low you got to go.
Yeah.
That's where I think the consultant has to play a greater role nowadays in helping the client set the right budget and justify the differences between the desirable budget and the budget that has been set. So if this is not properly done, you can do all the creative work only to have it all negated during tender.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that we find that food service consultants have to do a lot more in trying to win the client over.
Yeah. Mario, how would you say that the work that you've done across Asia Pacific, overseas for you has influenced or helped you in your projects back home in Australia? How has it kind of permeated that kind of work?
Well, the interesting thing is that Australia is a melting pot of cultures. So even our clients in Australia, there'd be of a Singaporean background, a Malaysian background, or somebody from India that's investing into something, or there'll be a local person of another ethnic community that's investing. So it's interesting that there are synergies, and there are things that are links in how you do it overseas and what the expectation is locally. So that does help on that level. But if I may just add also, when we talk about, and what Auburn talked earlier about, the budgets and about being there, one of the important things that our role as consultants is to bring to a project is that the client says, this is my budget, this is what I want to do. And if we know that there is a piece of equipment that has got some extra features that you've got to pay a little more, then it's our job to actually guide them on the benefits of investing in that technology, and how in time, where operational costs and energy costs are so high, the costs will be lower, your operational costs will be lower, labor costs are lower, so your return on investment is within 3 to 5 years. Typically business people want that. So when that's our job to actually to do that and to take them on that journey, and I think that's what differentiates a good consultant with someone else who's maybe a reseller just wanting to sell equipment and saying, okay, I'm going to fit your kitchen out, as to what we would bring to the table.
Thank you, Mario. Daniel, Owen mentioned earlier about the importance of knowing your local market and getting feedback and talking, communication being key. How much market research does MKN and your team do to determine how new products perhaps are going to be perceived in a particular region? How do you go about that process?
Obviously, it's one side is the investigation of the local markets. On the contrary, you have the history of the markets. And in addition to that, if we are about to launch new equipment, then we place the equipment into the market, and that depending on the target group. So obviously there are different products available for different target groups. Now I would say there's a shift towards institutional catering. So obviously you do have multifunctional appliances, pressure cooking technology, but we have to understand what is the acceptance in the market, how tolerant is the market, the operators to accept such high-end technology, and that's how we do it. So we place the equipment straight into the market for a certain period of time to just let them play and get the feedback.
And Danny, do you have a particularly favourite country in Asia to work in? One that you're particularly fond of?
That's a funny, it's a tricky question actually. Australia? Maybe Australia. Obviously we do have certain markets we put a focus on. Obviously Australia is one of the booming markets. Then there's Malaysia, where we see a lot of potential, a lot of projects going on. Vietnam, that's for sure. I think you have a lot of spots where we put focus on, and it is quite promising for the future, for next years to come.
Thanks, Daniel. Same question to you, Mario. What's your favourite country to work in?
Well, obviously Australia being biased, but if I had to choose, something out of Australia and over there, I think Singapore would be a, really good place, because, there's no fluffing around. It's what you see is what you get. Yeah. There's no hidden agenda. There's nothing else. They are not focused on their pockets or their own self thing. They're focused on the client. They're focused on the future. True. They're focused on, energy efficiency. They're focused on, whether the design and whatever else is the automation is going to make the workforce, work in a safer, happier environment. Be energy efficient. and do all the right things for the planet and for the end customer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would
And
say
it helps that
Singapore.
it's a beautiful country with lovely people, right?
Lovely people. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Auburn, same question to you. Where do you really enjoy working in Asia?
On a professional point of view, I think I like Macau a lot because these casinos provide an opportunity to engage with some of the finest chefs and operators.
Yeah.
And they tend to push you to the limits in terms of what can be done and what could be done, and how a restaurant can be an amazing environment on a super scale level. That's on a professional point of view. But when it comes to where the other alternative market that I like to go to a lot, which I'm not doing too much right now, is India, because India presents you not just Indian cuisine, but cuisine that comes from different regions, and they are completely different once you understand Maharashtrian coastal cuisine and Kerala coastal cuisine, and then you go to Delhi and you go to Frontier and you have the Frontier cuisine. I love that experience because then you eat the way the locals eat and you eat the way the locals prepare it.
Yeah.
And I do like that experience very much, and I miss it. I've not been to India for 7 years.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope you get back there very soon. We've talked about working across different territories. Let's talk about working across different sectors. Alburn, does your design philosophy fundamentally change when you work across different sectors? So if you're treating a hotel project, do you come at it from a completely different angle to a B&I project, a restaurant project, institutional catering, or does that philosophy always stay the same, slight tweaks? How does it work for you?
There are very many variables. We've done production kitchens where we were short of space, for example, especially like in a place like Singapore where we had to do a theme park. And we needed probably about 1,000 square meters, but we were given 500 square meters, and therefore we couldn't find real estate. Real estate is tough in Singapore. So how we got around it was using technology, like the kind that he was talking about, which is efficiency, production, reduced cooking time. But we also looked at how that kitchen could be operated over 24 hours with 2 shifts.
Wow.
But you see, that dealt with the capacity, and then we had to look at cook chill, maintenance of flavor, reduction of oxygen in the process. That helped us negotiate around this capacity issue, something that you don't see in a hotel, because a hotel is more culinary arts, and they work around labor skills and specialization. So if they need X amount of square meters, you get X amount of square meters, except that in Australia that's not the case. So in Australia, again, it changes very much, because you want to reduce labor as much as possible. So every single project in every single destination involves different variables.
Yeah. Mario, a huge amount of variables, as Auburn just said there. How do you stay kind of fleet-footed and flexible, or do you still come in with the same philosophy of good design is good design? How do you adapt?
So the thing is that as you said, there are variables, but the underlying principles are the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's the food safety aspect, like, you know, when you're designing, so there's no crossover and cross-contamination happening. The operator safety, so that he's not going over steps, so he's not walking long distances to get whatever he needs to get. And then where it's located to see how many deliveries, how often they can get it, and so the storage size that you need for that particular place. So those are the underlying principles that you apply to any job, anyone that you particularly do. But the changes are then depending where it is and you know how you approach it. But what I want to share is that we had an interesting one where we just completed last year, and we actually got an award for it with the Project Excellence. It was actually in Brunei, and it was interesting. They were thinking of this project for the last 15 years, but they just didn't know how to deliver it. And then they put it out to tender, and then we won the tender. And so they had a production facility catering for airline catering, and they had another facility that was catering to hospitals. They had another one doing restaurants. There was one that was doing bakery and selling bread out, and there was one ready-to-go meals. So they said, okay, there were all these different places there getting separate deliveries, separate staff, everything else. They wanted to bring it, and they had this piece of land, and they wanted to bring it all together. So then we had that challenge of designing one central facility that had the ability
to do all
of those different things in one place. You know what I mean? And as you said, those things are there for 24 hours of the day. So, you know, the bakery guy starts his shift early in the morning. He gets things out of the way, and you know, and the other guy does that. So it's about using the different segments and different and using technology.
Yeah.
We talked about, over the last couple of days, and generally we've been talking about shortage of labor and the labor issues and things like that. So thanks to the technology and thanks to all our allied members that are investing a lot of money and resources into getting better technology out there. Because what's the end goal for the customers? We want consistent quality, right? And for get consistent quality, you need highly skilled staff. And if you can't get highly skilled staff, then automation kicks in. And then that automation allows you to get that consistent quality over a period of time.
Thank you, Mario. Daniel, Mario just mentioned the end goal for the customers there. Let's focus on the customers for a moment here. What are some of the big consumer power trends that you're noticing? How are customers changing? What are they asking for?
So you two will agree, value engineering, that's one part of the project, right? It's not the most preferred one, by the way. So obviously we do have, I would say the education level of the end user has increased because they did many more projects. But for us, it's always and again the same feedback. Working with professionals like with the FCSI is something outstanding. You would find small chaps that just don't have the capability to run big projects. For us as AMKN, we are quite strong in project business, so about more than 80% of our business is in projects. So we do have the solutions available. Obviously, with such a wide portfolio of thermal catering equipment, we can cope all the different segments, be it hotel or be it institutional catering. So big operations with more than 100,000 meals in a day is not seldom for us. But I think having this contact to the end user as well is very important. And for us, it's always a long-term journey. So it's not a one-time business. It's to stay in touch and have a great long-term partnership.
Great answer. Thank you, Daniel. Auburn, the topic of labour is a major concern, certainly in North America and Europe, where I'm from. Are the challenges the same here in Asia? And if so, how are you seeing them being overcome? We've talked a little about automation here. Is that the answer to everything?
I think automation is one of the answers, but what I'm seeing a lot right now is, first of all, the cost of labor is going through the roof. Especially that's a huge problem in Australia, and constantly operators are looking at how you can get more out of fewer people in the crew. But the greater problem I'm seeing right now, coming out of the pandemic, is transient labor. Transient labor because the hotels shut down so rapidly and so quickly, people had to just leave the kitchens, leave dining rooms and the hospitality industry and look for other meaningful jobs. And as a result of that, few people actually signed up for hotel schools. And today we have a problem because this is like 3 years after the pandemic, and you now do not have enough people in the industry, at least not enough trained people. So I see operators sometimes getting a little bit desperate. They're almost like shaking the tree to get anybody they could or can into the kitchens as apprentices. Now, obviously there is one aspect here, which is technology. Do we use technology to reduce labor? Does this present to us a situation where we could start doing that? Would food service become less culinary arts orientated and more production predictable type orientated scenario? We don't know yet, but I think it's a problem everybody's grappling with right now. The answers are not clear yet.
No. Mario, are you seeing any clear answers?
Not really, but the thing is that we've got to look at each situation independently. You can't just apply one approach to all of them. Was it yesterday at the show or the day before? I heard a new term, falling upstairs. Falling upstairs. Another, what is this? What do you mean? So he's saying with the labor shortage, related to labor shortage, is that organizations are, he's a chef de Paris one day, next day he's a sous chef, the next day he's the executive chef, he's the head chef, he's only 23 years old, he's the head chef, you know what I mean? And they're calling it falling upstairs, so he's falling into those roles, and he's failing, he's not got the skills and experience to do that, you know what I mean? So that, again, that is where we have an important part to play. So when we go into that situation, and the guy says, I've got a chef, he wants to tell you what he wants and whatever. I said, listen, I will listen to the chef, but I'm going to tell you now, I'm not going to design it on what that chef told me what he wants, because that chef could be gone tomorrow, and this is your business. So I'm going to listen to him, but I'm going to design what's good for you, and what's good for you for the next 10 years. So it's about, taking their feedback, but not letting it be the only thing that's happening there. So, and I suppose what do we do about it and the labor shortage and, excuse me, how do we approach it? is that one of the things is that they're coming out of college now and they're coming out of uni and they're thinking, listen, I want a 6-figure salary, I want work-life balance, and all of a sudden hospitality is not so sexy, They don't want to work on the weekends, they don't want to be all of those things or be in the kitchen in a hot sort of situation. So again, a part we've got to play is being good role models to create spaces that people want to work in and make them happy, so they work in the kitchen. So you make sure that they exhaust and you make sure that condensers and other things are not there, that it's making very hot and uncomfortable to work. They're working in a pleasant environment. And then through our business, we also design the front of house. So again, making that area and that space a cool space to work in is all of the things that you try to do to address what we're doing. And as FCSI, one of the other things that we're also looking at very closely is through our Education Foundation to try and look at different ways that we can set up some pilot programs to encourage young professionals, or before they become professionals, to actually get interested in the industry and show them the steps of how to get into it.
Yeah.
And by own example, say, listen, this is a fantastic profession to be in. I would never swap it for anything else. You know what I mean? It's fantastic. Maybe swap it for yours next time and be a moderator, but not even that. It's a fantastic profession. So that's what we got to be good role models to them and
absolutely
help them.
We've talked about some of the challenges that this industry is facing, this particular region is facing. We've talked about some of the solutions here. Final question for me is, how is the Asia Pacific region itself optimized for success for food service in the future, and why should we be excited about the future of this sector in this particular part of the world? Daniel?
I would feel that the entire region has learned a lot even during pandemics, so the progress by means of efficiency has been increased significantly, and the focus is a different one. Now sustainability, durability, this comes more into the picture, and I feel that the region is ready for this. So we are excited, we are very optimistic, and looking forward to many more projects to be realized.
Excellent, thank you, Daniel. Mario?
When I was preparing for our strategic planning meeting in London for the Worldwide Board, I did research and was just looking at the GDP of the different countries and the economies of the world where we are today. And you find countries like the US and some parts in countries in Europe and others are there in the top 10. But you look at 2030 and beyond, they all slip away.
Yeah.
You've got China, India, Indonesia, all these countries now featuring in the top 10. So they have the economy, they have the population, they have the appetite. People love eating, they love hospitality. So there are some really strong indicators there to support our optimism of what will happen. And if I may go out on a limb and I say that if there are the top 3, or I would say that in the Asia region, I reckon India, Vietnam, Indonesia, those are the silent ones that are not doing much at the moment that potentially have a lot to offer, besides all the others, Singapore, Malaysia, Japan have that opportunity, Thailand. But I reckon those, so that's my take anyway.
Fantastic, Mario, thank you. Open. Mario's used words here like positivity, growth, potential, opportunity. Why are you positive about the future in this region?
Well, I think the pandemic taught us how to do more with less.
Yeah.
We also realized that, as we understood from yesterday's seminars, that the final mile has to be the human touch. Mm-hmm. What I see more happening now with our office and our enterprise is that we've now shrunk our team, and we are now able to cross borders without having to fly. We're actually able to do site inspections, actually by using video technology.
Yeah.
And we do fly down to have these face-to-face meetings for very, very essential tete-a-tete with the clients for the Q&A that I mentioned about.
Yep.
So I think that every industry has come to this crucial point where they understand we can do more with less. And I think that's the way we're going to go forward.
Fantastic. That's a really positive place, I think, to draw this panel session to a conclusion. That was a great debate from outstanding participants, Daniel, Mario and Alburn. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned to fcsi.org for future events. Thank you very much to MKN for their support in this series. Thank you again. Bye-bye.